Hey everyone, we're back. It's April and Cindy with The Travel Collective, and tonight we're talking about going alone on a group tour. So we want to offer some tips, some suggestions.
Okay. Yeah, we talked a little bit before we kind of got on here to
Hey
see
everyone.
what we would share. And I mean, there's a lot of good reasons. A lot of times you're going on a group tour because you literally can't get other people to go with you. So you just pick a group tour and go alone. But that is a great way to make new friends and, meet new people. It's a safe way to travel alone, if you will, right?
Right, it's a great way to maybe try a new skill. I mean, there's all kinds of group tours anymore that appeal to different niches, whether it's a book retreat or, mountain climbing or bicycling. So you're going to meet like-minded people on a group tour. So really do your research when you're looking for a group tour, because I know myself often, I've got days of vacation and a destination and no one
Right.
else wants to go. So
Right. Right. And do enough research to find out like what other people are doing, like what kind of group it is. I mean, there's obviously you can look online and you can see like, oh, this is definitely for younger people, or this is definitely for families, or it's for like adventure, high adrenaline people who want to do bungee jumping. Like if you're not that person, this tour may not be for you. And if you choose to go on a tour like that, even though that's not quite your thing, you're gonna have to be like patient and like they're going to do that and you don't want to, so you need to know like who the group is, and ask
right.
questions, right?
Right. And ask questions. Cindy and I always talk about reaching out, directly to the destination or the tour leader, find out who's leading the tour and give them a phone call or send them a direct email with questions. Even we often say too, even if you look like you found the answer, still by opening up that line of communication for a question that you may have already seen the answer, judging by their reply, you might get to know that person a little bit better or have a better feel of how you might fit in and what your comfort level is.
Right, exactly. And we have definitely found with the Travel Collective that there is a tour for everyone, for literally anything you want to do. So
Yeah.
if you haven't found it, just keep looking, because and even ask us directly, because we've probably talked to someone. We've talked to hundreds of people about different tours and different providers around the world. And there's everything from a Star Trek cruise to bird watching in England. Like it's all over the it's all across the board. And so, finding the right tour group that fits you is probably better than trying to fit into something that isn't you, right?
Oh,
Like,
I completely agree.
yeah,
And size can matter too, because oftentimes it's just like when you went to high school in a way.
yeah,
If the school is bigger, your odds of matching up with someone with like interests might be higher if it's a group that you're kind of trying to fit into. But if if it's a smaller group and it's very niche and that's your niche, if it's bird watching or photography, then you found your people. Most likely you're going to feel really comfortable there. So it's important to really
mhm,
ask, watch videos. If there's Zoom calls, I know with our tour providers, we often encourage them to participate in the Let's Talk Travel events. Those are great opportunities to find out more about that group environment.
yeah, absolutely. And finding out what they're doing and how it works. And you mentioned like large and small groups, and I'm just thinking, in a larger group, like a larger high school, you can disappear. No
Yeah.
one pay a lot of attention to you. So if you want to kind of like venture out on your own and kind of like fall into the woodwork a little bit, you could do that a lot easier in a tour that's bigger. I mean, again, it doesn't have to be 35 people. You're going to be able to kind of step away a lot easier. You won't be noticed if the tour is over 10 people. But if
Right.
in the 10 or under, we're going to know if you're gone, because there's not enough of us to, to pay it to not notice, right? So
Right.
yeah, I think about that. It depends on your personality and kind of what you're expecting to get out of it. I mean, I like smaller tours because I don't want to disappear. If I go with the group, I want to be part of the group and I want to get to know everybody. And I like the smaller group, but that's a personality thing. And it's also maybe a little bit about what you're trying to get out of the place, right?
Right. I think those are two really good points because I know too, Cindy, I enjoy those smaller groups because I intend like at the end of the trip, we're probably really good friends and we're going to stay
Right.
friends and we're going to maybe travel again together or at the very least, we're going to be talking throughout the year and sharing information or sharing photos, or, I discovered this. And it opens your world to meeting new people that I wouldn't have met in my
Yes.
own neighborhood.
Yes. And if you're on a larger tour, you're more likely, if you are meeting people, it's going to be a small subset of those people, right? You're not going to get to know all 45 people or all 35 people. You're going to know 4 or 5 of them really well. And if it's 10 people, you'll probably know most of them. Like you'll get to
Right.
know most of them really well. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, is to make travel buddies, and those tours are a great way to make travel buddies. Like you can go on a group tour and then you found a travel buddy who likes to travel, and maybe you can travel with them later in a different setting. I know lots of people that do that, meet up and travel after they've met on a group tour. So there's so many great things about traveling with a group, whether it's a big group or a small group. But I think really what we found is finding the right group.
Yeah,
That's
finding the right group is really important. So, and it may feel like it takes a little bit of time, but I think it's time well spent. I know
yes.
for myself too, it's like once I find the group that's like doing what interests me, it's like it's so super exciting, and you feel like, again, you have met new friends and people that now you're probably going to go want to do something again with them.
Yeah. And then just thinking about like going with a group, whether it's large or small, you have to go in it with an open mind and be flexible. Not everybody is the same. I mean, we've all lived with someone, whether it was with our families, siblings, and parents, but everybody's had a roommate, if you will. And we know, being cooped up with another human being, whether it's in a car, on a trip, that's trying. Even with someone you love and you can't get enough of most of the time, you can get enough of them in a 4-day car trip, right?
Right, exactly. So I think, yeah, tips are, being flexible and remembering that the tour leader is not a referee, they're not your counselor, they're not your
Right.
parent. So you
Yes.
need to take some onus on yourself to try to find ways, to take downtime.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some downtime that's been created, but make sure to communicate that or find ways. I know recently with some of my small groups, I just tell them we're going to be in this car for a long time. It's perfectly fine for you to bring a headset and your phone with some music that you want to listen to, or a
Right.
podcast that you want to listen to, so you don't have that pressure of like, wow, you got to communicate and keep a conversation going for 4 to 6 hours, because again, even with your best friend, that's going to get,
Yeah. You've had enough of them,
yeah,
right?
right, yeah.
And taking the time before you get frustrated, like just acknowledging that if you're on a tour with 10 people for 5 or 6 days, like every other day, just decide, what, for breakfast, I'm not going to go down, with everybody else. I'm going to go for a walk and get my own cup of coffee, and I'll meet up with them. I mean, tell your tour guide,
Yes.
whoever's leading him, that you're not going to join for breakfast, but just go for a walk and, take some space. I think you'll enjoy the trip more, but you'll also like be able to reflect sometimes that frustration with the group, whether it's the people or just being with people, we having to be on. I feel like that all the
Yes.
time. Like I get exhausted being on. I have to
Right.
be and talking to you and like be happy and a smile on my face. Like, oh, I'm tired. I just want to not talk to anybody. Sometimes that's just something you have to force yourself to take some time away. And then when you come back, you'll feel better.
Right, exactly. You'll
Yeah.
have a different outlook, and it
Mhm.
is important to, and completely necessary. I know
Mhm.
right before we got on the call, we were talking about ways as tour leaders too, to try to create that and say
Yeah.
that, hey, it's okay, everybody needs to go split up as such,
Yeah.
and not, we don't always have to have every single meal together, that it
Yeah.
is perfectly fine to take, a walk and go take your own breakfast, or take your meal that you picked up at the restaurant and just go somewhere and have some time on your own. And
I know I had a couple of folks on different tours where they've taken time out to talk to family. And I think that's a great thing to do. Like, I know, you're away from your family and sometimes you're like, oh, that's good. But, you're busy. If we're busy all the time, they'll say, well, I'm going to, leave dinner early because I want to make that phone call home and connect with my family for a minute. And even if you don't have like children or a spouse at home, if you have a parent or a good friend, just taking a moment to step away from the group for a minute and having like call your best friend back home or
Yes.
have a little, maybe 15 or 20 minutes and just tell them about the tour and how,
Yes.
have like that can also be just a moment of just you time, where you can just go to your room and have that conversation and then go back and join the group. Like that's
Right.
totally fine. I know some folks did that on a little trip we were on not too long ago, and I thought that's a really, I mean, I don't know whether they really went back and talked to their family or not, but it's a really good excuse. It's like, oh, I have to bow out. I'm going to go chat with my, family, right? I need to make a quick phone call. And everybody was like, oh, okay. Nobody thought anything of it. And I just thought whether they're talking to their friend or just taking a few minutes to go back to the room and like lay down and not talk
Yes,
to anybody for a few
exactly.
minutes,
Right.
totally fine. Um,
It's totally acceptable and very respected. Like you said, everyone's going to be like, right, we know we're traveling, we're on a different time zone than our families or their
mhm,
schedules. And it is important that we check in both with ourselves and with loved ones or friends to
yeah,
share about the trip and for ourselves just to kind of
yeah. But sometimes it's an opportunity
recharge.
to vent. Like if you're frustrated or something's not going your way, like you don't really want to like lay that all out on the tour group or the whatever. Just like I don't know what to do because this is you're call and vent to your girlfriend and just go, oh my god, I can't believe what just happened today. I've done that many times. Then I can come back and feel like okay, it's it's not just me, and it's okay, and
Right. It wasn't so bad. Right.
off your chest. So there are lots of ways to do that, and being open and flexible. I think that was the thing we were talking about. And then just being respectful, not just to your tour guide and what their rules are, but I think being respectful to the rest of the group and to the place you're visiting, right? Not
Yeah, I think that's
cultures are different, right?
I think that's ultimately really good is thinking about that being respectful not only to your tour guide and your other travelers that are with you, but to the destination, to the place you're staying, and be be a good traveler, so to speak,
Right.
and realize that, especially in some of these smaller groups like that Cindy and I like to share on our travel collective, is that we are staying local. So your expectation of what that local lodging is and what that local restaurant is, especially I know right now, the last couple of years have been a big change. There's a challenges with workforce and people and
Right.
what your expectation was a few years ago. These aren't Marriott's, these aren't corporate locations. And even those, they're not able to provide maybe the same level of service that they once were 5 years ago. And if
Right.
you're in it out of country internationally, that completely goes out the window.
Yeah.
And even in places like Alaska, these are very rugged places. They're outdoorsy. I know I was recently sharing with my group that, to them it's perfectly normal to live full time in a dry cabin. A dry cabin does not have running indoor plumbing. So to
Right.
them, having a place with your own in-suite bathroom, that's kind of
I mean,
luxury,
yeah. Well, and as you were talking, I was just thinking, as we travel, we go to different cultures, and as we go in and out of different cultures across the planet, they go both directions. Like sometimes you'll go someplace and you think, how do you live without an indoor, bathroom? But one, people did, and two, people do. A lot of people do. But also like, one of my best examples of it going the other direction is when I fly on a international flight. Like
Yes,
the service and the food is always better, right?
right.
So I'm getting like the bottom of the bucket when I fly on an American, a US flight, even if they go international, if it's US owned, you're getting like peanuts thrown at you from
Yeah, exactly, literally. That's a good
literally just like a bag of peanuts that
yeah.
you put in the head. Versus like when I went to Vietnam, I think we flew China Air. And I mean, I was not in first class. I got a warm washcloth. I got slippers for my feet. I got a full meal. I mean, I know I was on the flight for a long time, but when I flew, when I flew to France on a different airline and we was an American airline, I did not get any of those things. So it goes both directions. You can't, complaining about the lack of or the difference isn't helping. We're not being flexible and being aware, just like wake up and think about like this is different. This is part of the travel experience is to be in maybe rugged situation,
Right,
or
right.
right, and taking note of the difference and maybe reflecting on why there's a difference. I mean, there's an obvious difference in Alaska, the ruggedness. It's literally like difficult to do, like getting.
Yeah.
You and I mean, I grew up in an area where it was like you didn't have cable TV and we didn't have telephone, like out that far in the middle of nowhere. They don't have
Right.
those services, like they just don't. Um, so that's just a normal way to live. It's not, it's different. It's not wrong, right? And if you want to travel, that's one of the things that we have to do. And ask those questions ahead of time of your tour provider, what to expect when it comes to those. Because you can't, just because it's an American or a US tour provider doesn't mean you're gonna, when you travel out of the area, that you're gonna get
Right.
the Marriott or the Hilton everywhere you go, right?
Right, exactly. And just things like culturally, like we've spoken to, addressed on other episodes too. I mean, do a little bit of homework. And if you're on, take a little onus on this is you're going on a tour, you're going on a group adventure, and you're going to X. Look on the internet. How are people dressing in those places?
Yes, yeah,
What's okay in the United States to walk into a restaurant, say in Los Angeles, with your sweatshirt and jeans is not acceptable, possibly if you're going to maybe a nice place on the East Coast. It's just
yeah.
not going to fly. They just do
Absolutely have
things
that problem.
right, right.
Boston downtown will not let me go in tennis shoes in the restaurant. Like you just can't. In LA, I can go to the nicest restaurant in flip flops and no.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But it does, and it matters. I mean, in our own country, we have these things, as well as outside of the country, we have these issues. So knowing the differences and listening, like listening to the rest of the group and the tour provider, because they're going to tell you, like tonight's dinner, we have to dress up, or we're going to go here. I also think thinking about, the culture, the traditions, maybe religious and political issues as well. We've talked about this on another episode too, like being aware of the laws and being aware of the etiquette.
Yes.
Important, and hopefully your tour provider can provide some of that information, but taking it on yourself a little bit to know what is expected here. And if you're going to a country, I mean, I've been to countries where it's a communist country. I've been to Cuba, Vietnam. These are totally different political regimes, right? We're talking about a different situation there. I need to be aware of what I'm doing. If you go to a country that's Muslim or mostly Christian
Right.
or mostly, it depends on what's happening there, what kind of environment you're going to be in. And it's not your job to change it as a tourist or a traveler. It's more your job to observe and be respectful of that. So I think that's important to kind of pause and reflect on where you're going to be
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. And it's again, right, being open. And again, it's not only just for your safety, but for the group, for the other members' enjoyment. To fit in, oftentimes you're going to just have a more enjoyable experience. And we
Yeah.
often talk about that. You're going to be able to take back a much more unique experience as well if you can just be a little sponge and fit in and
Yeah, no, I think the sponge is a great thing, and be patient and be observing, like I like to try to like fold in as much as I can and act
yeah,
like the local, but sometimes, I mean, when I was in Vietnam, it was clear I was not a local, right? You stand out like a sore thumb. It's really easy to know that I don't belong here, but I could observe well, and I didn't have to, be so different from them, both in my dress and my behavior. I needed to, so I could observe and actually see them behave the way that they normally do, and understand how their culture is. I think understanding, and that's one of the things that helps you grow as a traveler, is listening and paying attention and trying to understand. So I think that's what we're talking about when we say being open-minded, is trying to understand why, they do what they do, right?
right, exactly. And the whole reason we travel is for new experiences. So keep
Right.
that in mind too, that, the reason you're traveling, the reason you're going on this group tour is for new experiences and trying something else that your leader has suggested. But if there's, again, look at the information ahead of time, make sure to plan in time for yourself, or if you can bring a book or bring a headset or, your own guidebook, and find those spaces to make it a little bit of your own experience. I think you'll have a really enjoyable time.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons we're kind of bringing this up is like your enjoyment level in a group is truly is your ability to like get along and work with the group. And we all know you can't work with the group if you can't be flexible, right? So that's
Right.
open-minded. So no matter whether you're going just out to dinner with a group of friends or having a family meal with, an extended family situation, or going on a tour to Paris for 6 days, their flexibility and patience are going to be your most important aspects so that you can have a good time. I think, April, you and I have talked a few times about just like not one of our conversations we were talking about, like, don't deal with problem things. Like if the reservation is wrong, that was the one we were doing. Like deal with it when you get home. Like sometimes you just
Right.
put that on the back burner. Like this is bothering me. I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'm going to try to, I don't want to ruin the trip, because if I say anything or I make a big fuss about it right now, it's just going to ruin the whole thing. So I'll wait till the end, and then I can either voice my opinion or talk to the tour provider or do something, but no need to disrupt the whole thing right now. So
Right.
finding a way to be patient, because we're all together and everyone is trying to enjoy it, including yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because
And
that's what
that's
I
what I mean. Just it's just that whole thing of, what you say, how you approach things, your facial expressions, it's a group. Just go in each day and, if you just have to
start fresh.
file away a little incident, like, oh, I'll vent on that later with my best friend on the phone, or I'm going to excuse myself at lunch because I just am busting to like
Tell somebody.
make it kind of comical. Sometimes when you approach it with a bit of comedy, and again, you can address, you can take care of the messed up reservation. You can take care of the fact that maybe the tour leader, the reservation was supposed to be paid by them and your credit card got charged. These are all things that can be sorted out later.
Yeah, definitely, making note of things. And if somebody's frustrating you or you're not getting what you want, I mean, definitely speak up. Like that's for sure. The tour provider and the people who are your tour guide can't fix problems that they're not aware of.
This is true. Yeah.
But getting yourself worked up, I think that's what I try to avoid, is like I get irritated and it's like, just let it go, because it's really not that important. What's more important is like you said, reset tomorrow, wake up tomorrow and just start all over. It's going to be, I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to enjoy my time, my vacation. It's so precious. We only get so much
Yes.
time. You're in a different country for maybe the first time, or maybe the only time you'll be here. And you don't want to ruin it by, getting yourself all worked up over something that you could literally just like let it go and maybe deal with it later, or not. Maybe you just, it's okay. It's not that.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be. Yeah, it's definitely yeah, working with a group is a challenge. And I know we talked, and I just wanted to touch on like the single supplement thing, because that's
Oh, yes.
people ask quite often about tours. Like the single supplement is such a pain. But the truth is, if you're going to have your own room, you're going to pay extra.
Yeah,
Whether
one way or
yep,
another. I
you
mean,
can't have, your own room by yourself and not. I mean, just think about it. If the room cost $100 a night, and I'm just like throwing round numbers out there, you put two people in it, it's suddenly cheaper per person. So whether you tell them, whether the tour organizer and the provider who's selling the travel to you sells it to you at the room price, like single price, and then gives you a discount if somebody else joins and shares your room, or if they sell it to you at the single, this is what it costs for, two people. Like that's what they're doing. Um, they're basically giving you the lowest price, and then they put that little word down there that you have to stay with someone. So
yeah.
right, that's why you and I don't do it, April, right? Like,
Right,
we don't say
right,
this is what it is if there's two of you. We say this is what it is if there's one of you. And if there's two of you, we work that out. It's differently, right?
right. But as we've talked about too, honestly, you still are a full person that's taking up a full, just like an
Yes.
airplane, you still need your full seat in a vehicle, and we still have to accommodate 6 people in this car. And if that's all we can fit in the car, we can only deduct a little because we're still giving you a full seat.
Because the
But we
hotel
have to,
lodging is only a portion of it. And that's why it's not double, right? Like if you
right.
go and you look at, this is the single, when you say you need a single supplement, they don't double the cost. They just
No,
increase it a little bit more because they have to give you a room by yourself. And that's
Right.
honestly, you are, I know we've heard people say, well, you pay for it either way. Yes, that's true, because you can't have a room by yourself and not pay for it. Like, that's just not possible. And it is quite honestly cheaper if you share a room. But I would be careful with some of those groups that have the single supplement. That's all they're doing. They're just basically giving you the discounted price up front, and then you have to ask them how much it costs to have your own room. And they're trying to incentivize you to have two people, because it is, I mean, I know for me, some of the little places that I stay at, this hotel only has 12 rooms.
Right.
So I can only take 12 people. I could take 14 people if somebody doubled, right? Like, you can't, but I can't take more than that. So sometimes that's part of the issue also, is just knowing what the number of rooms are, and what's available to where you're going. So single supplement is a pain, but you're not, even when companies are saying they don't provide singles, or they don't require single supplement, you're still paying for it. And if you think not, you're you're wrong.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just math. It's just
Yeah.
economics, and right.
Yeah. But it's sadly how a lot of these big companies are kind of getting your sticker shock, right? Because they're like, it's this much, and
Yeah.
oh, that's really inexpensive. Oh, never mind. I have to add $800 to that price because I want my own room. Yeah. So hopefully you'll be able to find more. I think what we've discovered, and it's not just you and I, because you and I don't do this, but most of the smaller companies, the smaller boutique travel, the ones that offer, they don't do it that way, because they've discovered that most people come on their own anyway. The big
Right. Most people come on their own. Most people, especially if you're in a group that's 10 or less,
Yep.
oftentimes, you are spending so much time together, in a shared vehicle, on shared tours, all that time is time together, that it really is best if each person does have their own space in the evening. It does allow that downtime that each of us needs. Even the most social of us may
Right.
not recognize it, but honestly, you're with new people, new experiences, travel, no matter how you slice it. It's, there's always going to be unexpected things. You're just in new environments, your time zones, and all of
When you're
that.
tired and hangry and
Right,
all those
right,
things happen,
right. You
right?
don't have your own creature comforts that you're used to in your own environment. And, none of us is getting younger. So as we get older, we expect, and our bodies need like certain
Yes.
standards. So having that own room is super,
Yeah.
super worth it, super valuable.
Yeah. So we hope that you take lots of tours with lots of groups, and check out more stuff on the Travel Collective. You can see that on the-travelcollective.com. There are lots of tour providers on there providing tours, and you can meet them at least once a month, if not more often. We do a Let's Talk Travel event where you can come and connect directly with the tour provider. And I think that gives people a really good
I think so too. Ask questions and hear exactly from the tour provider what the tour entails, how it's going to work out. So, highly encourage you to check out all of our unique offerings, as Cindy said, on the-travel